My one job was to look out for her, and that has not happened. And I'm going to keep looking out for her now as best I can.
What would you actually do if your partner, the person you chose, the one you love and promised forever to, just vanished? Would you be glued to your phone? Would you be out on the water, refusing to stop until you found them? Most people say they would, no question. But for one guy whose name is already out there, the records from those first few days show him scrolling Facebook and liking a friend's post. Wow, that man is Brian Hooker. And according to a friend who went on the record with CBS News, that was only the beginning. There's more. What's that really tell us? Let's get into it. Before we dive in, we've got to talk about something directly. Because based on the comments on other videos about this case, I already know where some of you are going with this. And it's a point we should honestly take seriously before looking at anything else. Some of you are going to argue that Brian was just in total shock, that there is no right way to grieve. When your whole world falls apart and the person you love most is gone, the human brain just breaks in ways that look weird or even wrong to people on the outside. People go numb. They get eerily quiet. Sometimes people act detached or cold when they aren't, because real shock doesn't look like it does in the movies. Under extreme stress, the brain sometimes clings to the mundane instead of the emergency. That's a fair point. I get that, and I'm not dismissing it at all. But here's what I'm asking you to do. We aren't here to convict anyone or decide based on some YouTube breakdown that you know exactly what happened near Elbow K on April 4th. I'm just asking you to keep an open mind. Look at these specific behaviors, sourced, confirmed, and backed up, and then ask yourself, does the full picture, when you look at it honestly, raise some questions that need answers? Because there is a big difference between initial shock and a consistent pattern. And more than one person, from different perspectives, has said this pattern just doesn't feel right. Before we get into the details of what Daniel Danforth told CBS News, let's look at what people could actually see in the days after Lynette disappeared. Because Brian's social media activity during that time isn't just about one single notification. The couple had shared their whole sailing life online, mostly through Instagram. Looking at that account, it was clear Lynette was the creative force. She wrote the captions, edited the clips, described the sea conditions, and basically built their online identity. The account was about both of them, but it was her voice. When Lynette went missing, that part of their life went totally silent because she wasn't there to tell it. A few days after she vanished, Brian posted a formal statement on Facebook with a picture of them together. The wording was very careful, very composed. I'm completely heartbroken over the recent boating accident in rough seas and high winds that caused my dear Lynette to fall from our small dinghy near Elbow Key in the Bahamas. Even though I tried desperately to reach her, the winds and currents just pushed us further apart. Finding her is literally all I care about right now. That was the official word he put out online for everyone. During that exact same time, Daniel Danforth told CBS News that Brian was actually just hanging out on Facebook, liking stuff and commenting on boating posts instead of writing updates. No emergency signals were sent, just casually browsing through boat photos. Which is wild, because that is the thing he claims caused his wife to fall into the dark ocean and vanish without a trace. Word is, he was even marking up maps to send over to his buddies. CBS says he was actually reaching out to a bunch of people during those first few days. Now look, before he got picked up, Brian wouldn't talk to reporters from CBS at all. Total silence from him. The minute he got out, though, he was suddenly everywhere, talking to NBC, CBS, and ABC within 24 hours of his release. He kept saying that nobody told him to quit searching, so he was just going to keep at it. He told the NBC crew, he said Lynette was his entire world, that they'd been a couple for nearly half his life, and he wouldn't stop until he found her. She is everything to me. We have spent almost half our lives together, and we are a part of each other, and I'm not giving up the search. ABC asked him if he had any regrets or things he'd do over. I had one responsibility, protecting her, and I failed. So now I am doing everything I possibly can to find her. That single task, my only real duty was keeping her safe, and I blew it, so I am going to try and make it right by searching now. Those are not the words of someone who does not know how to talk to the public. This guy knows exactly what he is saying. who he is saying it to, and why timing matters. That makes his earlier behavior, those private texts and messages, seem even more suspicious. And that time spent on Facebook, plus that call to his stepdaughter. It is worth looking at, because if you can act for a camera, you know how to hide things in private. So, let us dive into what was actually happening behind the scenes in this video. Everything started on the night of April 4th, 2026, in Hopetown, Bahamas. The two of them had been hanging out at the Abaco Inn, which is this sleepy little spot famous for its red and white striped lighthouse and calm waters. Looking at their posts leading up to that night, it seemed like they were having a great time sailing through the different islands, going through channels, getting dive tanks filled, and taking the dinghy around. Their shared online profile painted a picture of two pros who lived for the ocean, completely immersed in a lifestyle they had been building for over 12 years. Right around 7:30 p.m., Brian claimed they hopped into their 8-foot dinghy to head back toward the Soulmate, their 46-foot sailing yacht, where they had lived for 4 years. It was a quick, routine trip, something they had done a million times already. But there is one major detail in the records that you just cannot ignore. The sun went down at 7:26 p.m., just 4 minutes before they left. They weren't moving in twilight. It was already dark by the time they pushed off. Pitch black on the open Bahamian waves, just a small 8-foot dinghy out there. According to Brian, the weather really started falling apart after they set off. Powerful gusts and rough waves turned the water between the inn and Elbow Key dangerous. At least, that's what he told the cops. That's when Lynette went over. Investigators heard that she had the key in her hand, still clipped to its safety cord. It is a basic piece of gear, a simple lanyard built to kill the motor instantly if someone falls into the water. When she hit the water with that key still attached, the motor just cut out. That little boat was useless, dead in the water during a storm at night. Brian claims she just drifted off. He said the wind pushed them away from each other. He sent a private Facebook message to a friend, Daniel Danforth, which CBS News looked at, sent way before the news even hit the public. This was Brian's explanation. The gusts just ripped us apart while she swam for the boat, and we lost track of one another fast because the sun was setting. It is the same story. What he told the cops matched what he told his friend before things went public. Totally consistent. Then he explained what came next. He just started drifting. For 7 hours he tried rowing with a single oar. Around 4 in the morning on April 5th, almost 9 hours after she supposedly fell in, he finally made it to the boatyard at Marsh Harbor on Abaco. He walked up and told someone his wife was gone. They called the Bahamian police, and the search kicked off 9 hours too late. There are 2 big holes in that story that nobody has cleared up yet. Lynette's daughter, Carly Ayworth, brought up the first point to CNN, and it is something you cannot just brush off. Why did he not just anchor the boat? If a person falls out in rough, pitch-black water and your motor dies, you drop anchor right then and there. Seriously, why wouldn't he just stop, throw the anchor down, and try to find her? That was Carly. She argued that you should mark your exact spot where they fell in and start looking. You do not just row away from the scene for 9 hours trying to reach some marina. She straight up asked CNN why he would paddle in the opposite direction instead of staying to look. The second point came from Daniel Danforth. He mentioned to CBS News that the couple always kept their phones on them, every time. He could not understand how someone could drift for 7 hours without ever reaching for a phone or sending out an emergency signal. Nobody heard a word until he showed up at that marina at 4 in the morning. 9 hours after everything happened. Since being released, Brian has not said a word about either of those questions in public. Once the call went out, the authorities jumped into action immediately. The Bahamian police and their defense force both got involved, plus the Hopetown Volunteer Rescue Team. Even the United States Coast Guard sent planes to scan the water in the coast. Several groups searched for days, but turned up empty. A few days later, the local police officially stopped calling it a rescue and started a recovery. Those words were chosen very carefully. Rescue implies hope for a survivor. Recovery means they are no longer expecting to find anyone alive. At the time we're filming this, Lynette Hooker's body still hasn't been recovered. Boats were still out searching, but behind the scenes, detectives were putting together a very different case. Police moved in with a search warrant for the soulmate. CBS News actually got their hands on that document. The list of stuff they could take was very specific. A video recorder, some tablets, and anything related to cell phones. Plus, the warrant didn't mince words about why. The idea was that these devices held evidence of a disappearance linked to physical harm. We aren't talking about a simple accident. This was about someone getting hurt. Cops were hunting for something very particular on that tech. Anything that would reveal what really went down on or near the vessel. On April 4th, Brian went in as a witness, left, and then came back for more questioning. By that third sit-down, though, the whole vibe shifted. Suddenly, he was officially a suspect. By Wednesday, April 9th, 2026, 5 days since she vanished, they arrested him and hauled him to the station in Freeport. Assistant Commissioner Eduardo Dames gave the word to Reuters. He wasn't just a person of interest or a witness anymore. He was in custody as a full-blown suspect. They grilled him for about 3 hours that Friday, April 11th. The local police used every bit of time the Bahamas legal system allowed, stretching that standard 48-hour window out to the maximum 96 hours before they actually had to decide on a charge. They clearly needed every minute. If you're tracking this story and want the latest updates, hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell so you're the first to know whenever something new breaks. Now, let's talk about Daniel Danforth, a guy from Minden, Louisiana. He sat down with CBS and explained he'd met the hookers about 3 years back while they were all sailing around South Louisiana. They bonded over the water, just that mutual understanding of what the sailing life is all about. They kept in touch through Facebook and stuff. From then on, Danforth saw Brian as a buddy. Right after Lynette went missing, while search teams were combing the water and the story was starting to blow up across the country, Danforth's phone lit up with a notification. It wasn't a call or a text from Brian, just a simple notification. One of those alerts you get when someone likes your post or a comment. Turned out, Brian Hooker had just liked a comment Danforth left on his wife's wall. The post was about sailing. Brian was just browsing Facebook, scrolling through his feed. He happened to see this post about boats. Remember, being on a boat is exactly how he told police his wife went missing. Yet here he was, just casually clicking like on comments about that very topic. This isn't some rumor, it's a confirmed fact, not just some hazy social media gossip. He actually hit like on a boating comment, which was verified by a real person talking to CBS News. Danforth told the reporters, "Look, if my wife was gone, Facebook would be the furthest thing from my mind. I'd be out there on the water, searching." He was really pointing out the difference in their reactions, especially for someone who knows how dangerous the ocean can be. There is a massive disconnect between what you'd expect from someone in that situation and Brian's actual behavior. Brian never called for help or sent a single text begging Danforth to come down there. Instead, the only ping he got was a casual social media tag about some boat videos. Just that. At first, Danforth didn't think twice. It just looked like a normal message from a friend he hadn't chatted with in a while. But then, the news started breaking. The reports about Lynette and the details from that night at Elbow Cay made Danforth connect the dots between the timeline and that notification. His wife was gone. People were out there looking for her. And right in the middle of all that, Brian Hooker was on his phone, scrolling through social media and liking posts about boats. Looking back, Danforth said, that realization started a firestorm of questions he just couldn't shake. Once everything about Lynette's situation finally sank in, Danforth reached out to Brian on Facebook Messenger on Monday, April 7th, 2 days after she was reported missing. Brian wrote back, and CBS News actually got to look at the whole conversation. In general, the way Brian replied was mostly the same story he gave to the police. He claimed Lynette fell out of the dinghy when the water got rough on their way to the sailboat. He said the wind just pushed him too far away from her. Apparently, she was swimming toward the soulmate, but they lost track of each other right as the sun was going down. He went into the whole thing, the drifting, having only one oar, and the 7 hours he spent out there. The private chat lined up with the official report. But then the tone of the conversation took a turn that Danforth found impossible to ignore. Brian told him, quote, "Our family is in hell right now." CBS News saw the original text to confirm it, and yet, in that exact same message thread, the one CBS News verified, Brian pivotally congratulated Daniel Danforth on the new sailboat he'd just bought. Think about that. One breath he is in hell, and the next he is saying, "Nice boat." Danforth told his local station in Louisiana, KTBS, that the way Brian talked about Lynette did not sound like a man whose wife was missing. He said Brian made it seem like her swimming back to the boat was totally casual, not a life-or-death situation. It just did not sound like his wife was actually gone. That is exactly how he described it to the local news. After being the one who actually read those texts, Danforth said it left him with this incredibly nauseating feeling. There is one other thing Danforth told CBS that hasn't been talked about much, but it is probably just as important. He mentioned to CBS News how much it bothered him that Brian moved the soulmate from where it was anchored at Elbow Key. That was the specific spot on the map where Lynette was last seen, but he moved it to Marsh Harbor almost immediately after she went missing. That boat and that location, they weren't just background noise, they were evidence. That spot was supposed to be the center of the whole search operation. The investigation needed that point of reference, and yet the boat was gone. Why the soulmate was moved, and who decided to do it and when, is now a major question for the investigators. There is one more person whose side of the story carries a lot of weight, because of what she is saying about Brian and what his own messages to her actually show. Carly Allsworth happens to be the daughter of Lynette. Her stepdad is Brian Hooker. She told CNN that on Sunday night, April 6th, between 8 and 8:30, Brian reached out. At that point, Lynette had already been gone since the previous evening. When he called that Sunday night, I was still in total shock while he was talking, so I didn't really have much to say. I just managed and, okay, I was just trying to wrap my head around it all. He mentioned something about coming up to visit, said he wanted to see us, but I didn't even answer. Then, just like that, he hung up. Allsworth says the call was cold, incredibly short, and over before she could get a single word in. Brian just said, "Hey, your mom is gone. We don't know where she is. She's been missing since last night, but we'll be heading up your way to see you soon." And then the line went dead. She told CNN it felt like he'd dropped a bomb on her, and then ghosted before she could even blink. She was stuck there, holding on to a sentence she hadn't fully grasped yet, with no explanation and no answers. How do you just lose my mother? Now, take that quick, weirdly short phone call, the delivery, that sudden ending, and compare it to how Brian acted for the cameras once he got out. Those Tuesday morning interviews were polished and calm. He was sharp, clearly calculating exactly what he was saying and who was listening. He told NBC, "Nobody told me to quit searching, so I'm going to keep looking." He told the same outlet that Lynette was his entire world. They'd been together nearly half his life, and he wouldn't stop. He even told CBS he believed people could survive the Bahamas waters for days or even weeks, and with so many islands, there was still a chance they'd find something. Then he told ABC, "My primary responsibility, my only job really, was to protect her. That didn't happen, so now I'm looking for her." During that same media blitz, he pointed out that this stretch, 10 days, was the longest he'd ever spent away from Lynette. Right before his arrest, he told NBC he was planning to rent a plane for an aerial search. That's the kind of poise you see in someone who knows exactly how to work a lens. Being calm doesn't automatically make someone a criminal. But the gap between that and a 30-second call to his stepdaughter the night after her mom vanished, the cold, dry delivery, hanging up before she could even blink, that's the part Allsworth says never felt right to her. There was one more piece of communication from Brian to Allsworth that CNN and CBS both covered. A voicemail. He left her a message saying the Hopetown rescue team had located a flotation device. In that recording Allsworth gave to CNN, Brian goes, "Hey there, honey. Search and rescue just reached out. They found one of those floating things I tossed to your mom when she went over. And, so, they haven't spotted her yet, but this helps them zero in on a much smaller area. They are still out there searching today. Just wanted to give you the heads up. Love you. Talk soon. Bye-bye." "Hey, honey. I just heard from Hopetown Search and Rescue. They found the flotation device I threw out when your mom fell overboard. They found the device. That much is confirmed." Now, if you are looking closely at how Brian was acting, that voicemail stands out for one specific reason. He left this message entirely on his own. Nobody forced him, and he did not wait to be asked before sharing it. But what Ayworth had to say about their marriage goes way deeper than just a phone call or a voicemail. She spoke straight to Fox News, saying, "I have literally seen him choke one of his daughters before. We even had to take it to court, so he is just repeating old patterns." She also mentioned to CNN that, in private, her mom admitted Brian had choked her too. Now, CNN did point out they could not find a police record to back that specific claim up independently. She told Fox News that back in January 2024, her mom told her Brian had threatened to toss her right off the boat during a fight. Just threatened to throw her overboard. In 2024, which was 14 months before that night on April 4th, 2026, she described her mother as a pro in the water, someone who really knew her way around a boat and felt totally at home in the water. Because of that, she is not buying the idea that her mom just fell off. She asked a simple question: who actually gains from Lynette being gone? She was not making a legal charge yet. She was just asking the kind of thing anyone in her shoes would be asking. It is the same thing investigators look at whenever a spouse vanishes. It is just standard protocol. Looking for a motive is always part of the job. Ayworth was actually brought in for an interview by the United States Coast Guard. Her lawyer says they talked for about 2 hours as part of the criminal investigation. We do not know exactly what she told them, but you do not talk for 2 hours if you have nothing to say. The Coast Guard was clearly putting a case together. Brian Hooker's lawyer, Terrell Butler, has been shutting down every single one of these claims from the start. In a formal statement, she said, "Mr. Hooker completely denies any wrongdoing, especially these latest claims made by Carly Ayworth. He has been working with the authorities during this whole ongoing investigation. No charges have been filed. He says he did not do it. Legally speaking, that is where we are right now. But if there is one part of this story you really should not blink and miss, it is this. Because this does not come from a cop, a friend, or even a lawyer." These are Lynette Hooker's own words. Back in January 2024, CBS News got a hold of some private messages Lynette sent to her friend, Marn Stevenson. She wrote these during a time when she and Brian were actually separated. Lynette wrote, "It was really bad. I just cannot be out there with him." By out there, she meant the boat, the same one they had lived on for 4 years. She kept saying it. It was real bad. She was not just talking about a little argument or a rough week. It was serious enough that she literally could not stand to be on that boat with her husband anymore. Just private words to a close friend. No audience, no faking it. About a month later, by late February 2024, they had patched things up. Marn messaged her saying it looked like things were finally turning around. Lynette sent back a bunch of heart emojis and a thumbs up. She went back to him, back to her soulmate, and back to the water she said she could not face with him. Now, think about what else we have learned about that same year. That same part of 2024, when Carly Ayworth told Fox News her mom, word is Brian threatened to toss her overboard during a blow-up that same year. Right around the split, the DMs to Marn D, the makeup. It is a pattern. This is not just gossip. It is documented. Those messages were actually verified. CBS News confirmed them with the sources. Plus, Allsworth went on record with Fox News. These aren't just faceless tips. People put their names to this. Then, on April 4th, 2026, Lynette was on that boat. And if you believe the only witness there, she went overboard. She has not been seen since. There is one more record, a piece of history that belongs in any real look at this marriage. It is public now. Back in February 2015, in Kentwood, Michigan, both Brian and Lynette Hooker got into a real physical fight. Police records show Brian was hit several times. He had a swollen, bloody nose that day. Lynette ended up arrested on charges of assault and battery plus simple assault. But during that same fight, Lynette claimed Brian hit her in the head and choked her while they were clashing. The cops could not figure out who actually started the whole thing. The warrant against Lynette was tossed out. The official note said there just was not enough proof to say who swung first. Nobody was prosecuted. Not him, not her. One fight, 11 years ago. Conflicting stories and 0 charges. We aren't judging it, but investigators trying to map out this couple's past now have that 2015 Michigan fight, and the 2024 split. The alleged threat to throw her over the side in 2024, a reconciliation. And then that night on April 4th, 2026. These aren't random, one-off events. They build a timeline, one that investigators are picking apart right now. On April 9th, 2026, Brian Hooker was cuffed and taken to Freeport Station. He was locked up for 5 days, questioned for roughly 3 hours, while the Bahamas police used every bit of their 96-hour detention limit. Monday night, April 14th, Brian Hooker walked out of that station with his lawyer. No charges. The prosecutors put out a statement saying they recommended no charges be filed. Those 3 words carry weight right now, at least until the investigation wraps up. His lawyer, Terrell Butler, told the press there was 0 evidence. Her client was free. She mentioned he was incredibly emotional. She said he needed time to recover from what she called a horrific experience. Bahamas Police Commissioner Shanta Knowles made the department's stance very clear. Brian Hooker is out, but he is still a suspect. The case is still active. Honestly, those 2 things can be true at once. Being released and being cleared are completely different. Released just means the proof was not there today. It definitely does not mean the investigation is over. It does not mean he is innocent. The file is open. People are watching. Brian walked out and hit the cameras within 24 hours. He claimed he could not even think about stopping the search. He said 10 days without Lynette was the longest they had ever been apart. He swore she was everything to him, his entire reason for being. Looking out for her was his only priority, but he failed. So now he plans to just keep searching. His stepdaughter talked to CNN following his release. If the investigators really dig into every single detail, then I guess I'll accept it was a fluke accident, though I honestly doubt this is the end. Lynette Hooker is still missing. Currently, the Bahamas authorities are focused on recovery instead of a rescue mission. A criminal probe has been launched by the Coast Guard. Detectives are currently analyzing phones and electronics taken from the partner during a search tied to potential physical injury. The data hasn't been shared with anyone yet. State Department officials are currently offering support to the family. Authorities from 2 separate nations are now officially looking at this as something much darker than a mishap. Brian Hooker isn't behind bars right now. No charges have been filed. He says he plans to stay on the islands and keep up the search. Prior to being detained, he mentioned to NBC that he'd intended to rent a plane for aerial scouting. As for his next moves after spending 5 days in a Bahamian cell while the Coast Guard runs a full-blown criminal investigation into him, that's still a mystery. Daniel Danforth spoke up publicly. He shared his story, his identity, and those texts with CBS News. He went on camera to verify that he got a Facebook alert on the very day. Lynette vanished, showing Brian Hooker liking some random comment about a boat post. This info comes directly from a specific witness who saw the alert on his own phone and chose to explain why it bothered him. A mariner out of Minden, Louisiana, someone who saw that notification, weighed it against the facts and realized the whole thing didn't match how a guy should act when his wife just disappeared at sea. Lynette Hooker, a 55-year-old woman from Grand Rapids, Michigan, had been married 25 years and sailing for over 12. She loved sharing videos of turtles, storms, and island docks, often writing about how much she adored living out on the waves. Back in January 2024, she texted a friend saying things were getting really ugly, and she simply couldn't be out there with her husband. But she went back anyway, riding in that small boat, out on the waves the night of April 4th, and she hasn't been seen since. Tell me what you think below. You guys have honestly been more observant about this than the mainstream media. Consider the whole story. The weird social media activity, those cryptic texts, the phone call to Carly, the shifted boat, and that 9-hour rowing trip. Does that sound like a grieving husband to you? Or does something feel off? What's the main thing detectives should be grilling him about at this point? Is it the phones, the anchor, or is there a bigger piece missing? The investigation has reached a chilling turning point. Every clue uncovered has only deepened the mystery, tightening the circle around those who may be hiding the truth. Detectives are no longer chasing shadows. They are closing in on something real, something undeniable. Witness accounts, newly revealed evidence, and subtle inconsistencies are beginning to align, painting a picture that can't be ignored. Yet, questions still linger, heavy and unresolved. What really happened, and who is responsible? As pressure mounts, one thing is clear: the truth is closer than ever, and when it surfaces, it could change everything. We really do go through your comments. Your take on this is valuable. If you haven't hit subscribe, do it now. This case is developing fast. Brian Hooker remains a person of interest while those electronics are being checked. The Coast Guard investigation is ongoing. As soon as something major happens, we'll be the ones reporting it. Stick around so you aren't the last person to hear the news.